On this episode of Extraordinary Lives, I'm talking to Amy Polly. Amy is a teacher, speaker, author and mental health campaigner with mindfulness and well-being at the core of everything she does. Amy is a fully qualified accountant with a 20-year career, most recently as the senior leader in the fire service, managing 3 departments, as well as being strategic lead for mental health and well-being. She left this role in 2021 to trailblaze her passion of mindfulness, to demonstrate how managing our own mental health can be a force for change when it comes to organisation and culture. I am craving learning as much as possible about mindfulness and wellness, so this conversation with Amy will be fascinating, and I want to know what works personally for her and her definition of mindfulness. As a parent myself to 2 young daughters, I feel strongly that a better understanding of wellness and mental health is desperately needed to be included on the school curriculum. Why is it not taught in schools from a young age when we have data showing kids develop so much by the age of 7? I know this is something Amy is passionate about and actively visiting schools to help kids with coping mechanisms and to talk rather than suffering in silence. I'm really looking forward to talking with Amy. Amy, welcome.
Hello, thank you. I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. Tell me, who's Amy Polly?
So, $1 million question. I am a mum. I am a mindfulness teacher, a mental health speaker. I call myself a rebel because I just feel like I do things a little bit differently. I go into organisations and talk about mental health and mindfulness. I am a neurodiversity advocate because I was late diagnosed with ADHD. And hopefully I'm someone that just brings a little bit of joy to people's lives.
100%. I will agree with that in spades. What did a young Amy want to be when you were growing up?
So I wanted to be a children's TV presenter. That was the main thing I remember. You know, growing up, actually, even at a really young age, I wanted to be an entertainer. I always used to say to my mum, I want to sing, I want to dance, and that would always be me coming along and making people smile and singing and making up my own routines. And then I remember when I was sort of teenager, when you're thinking about what you actually want to do, I was going to go off and be an entertainer on a cruise ship specifically. And that's what I wanted to do. And then I ended up being an accountant.
God, I need to know what happened there.
I know.
That's very different.
Do you know what happened, which I think is what happens for a lot of people? You have that pressure of finding something that is going to be safe. And my parents, by the way, are really supportive. I was never pressured into doing anything. I wasn't pressured into uni. I didn't want to go to uni. I didn't do that. But I just had that feeling of, oh, you're leaving school now. What are you going to do? And I went,
Oh, it's really sad hearing that. And actually pressure to grow up.
Yeah.
Get a job.
Yeah. I mean, I still like to point out that I did rock up to massive audits when I was in accounts and audit in my pink car. And I still used to, I hope, make people smile and do things in my way. So, and I, you know, we all say
kept that character with you all the way through.
I think so.
Yeah.
And I did enjoy my career for a long time because I am someone that if I set my mind to something, I'm going to do it. So my aim was to qualify as an accountant, and that's what I was going to do. So still had fun doing it, and I don't think I was your typical accountant.
No, I can't imagine, but probably a lot more enjoyable for the people around you.
I hope so.
In that environment.
Yeah.
So take me through, because that was 20-year career?
19 years.
19 years, right?
Yeah.
So at what point did the rebel in you just kind of, you know, I'm coming out?
Yeah. So I found mindfulness just for myself personally. I was going through a period of stress and I needed something, and you go to a search engine in the middle of the night, and that's how I found it. And I started to realise that the more that I talked about these things, my mental health, the fact that I was practicing mindfulness, I started studying it because I'm like that as well.
Yeah.
I realised that there was something in it straight away when it helped me to sleep better. So I then signed up to courses because that's how I am. I was like, this works. It's magic. I need to know everything about it. And so I signed up to a course and I started to learn. But when I started to open up, I've noticed that other people started to open up. And I guess that set me on a journey of being a bit more myself, because when you practice mindfulness, you have more self-awareness, and I started to have a bit more confidence in myself. And then fast forward, because I practiced for a few years just for me and my family and my mum who suffered with depression. We did things together. And then I started to talk about it more in my last role in the fire service. And the more that I spoke about it, the more that my manager could see that I was good with people and maybe this might help. And I guess that was the catalyst. And then we went into COVID and I'd been struggling. And I think that I took the leap in 2021 to leave my accountancy career. So I think COVID and having had my little boy and struggling with that was the
but
life's
actually,
too short.
Totally. But that prepared you, right? Actually, in the context of your own journey, practicing with your mum, people around you that clearly benefited from your positivity, your knowledge. Now, tell me the sort of the journey from leaving the fire service, secure job, getting paid every month, because you went full entrepreneurial, right?
Yeah.
Talk me through that.
So, and can I just say, by the way, that as a bit of like my backstory, I practice mindfulness just for me, and it is my passion because it helped me so much. It was never, I'm going to do this because this is going to be my job. I think it's very different when you start something because it's helped you so much, and it is my passion, and I was living it before I was teaching it. So yeah, the journey from leaving the fire service, basically, we haven't got long, and there's so much happened in such a short space of time. But I had my little boy, and I'd always wanted a baby. I was so excited about it, felt prepared, all good. But when I had him, I absolutely knocked me for six. I suffered with postnatal anxiety, which I'd never even heard of. And I think when things like that happen, you start on that train of what's happening, that life is too short and I don't feel okay. What do I need to do to look after myself? And so I was already on this journey of self-development and mindfulness and knowing that I need to communicate and ask for help. And when I went back to work after having him, I was really open about my journey. I did not want to go to work and have to be quiet about the fact that I was struggling. And I already know that the power of sharing and having supported my mum and stuff. So that's what I did. I was very open about my journey. I was open about how I was struggling, and I was open about the things that were helping me, like mindfulness. And so my boss saw in me that we didn't have a mental health and wellbeing strategy. I was very open about it. I'd already started doing stuff for my own benefit. And he just said to me one day, do you want to be strategic lead for mental health and wellbeing? And I said, yeah. So I was already managing 3 departments. I was already on the leadership team. I already had a toddler. I was then splitting with my partner. So there was a lot going on, but that it was my passion. People, I love people, and understanding my own mental health, going on that mindfulness journey, it was my passion. And so I saw an opportunity here. We didn't have that strategy. We didn't have the action plan. Oh, so excited to get stuck in. It was a lot.
Yeah.
But I just went for it, went and did it, started to do my training, mental health first aider training, mental health awareness training, started to talk to people, started to understand the things they were going through in the fire service, and started to understand what it means to have a mental health and wellbeing strategy and an action plan. And I loved it. It was so fulfilling. And I guess that was the thing, that the opportunity within the service that I then decided to leave, because
I bet your boss was gutted. I mean, just listening to you now and how you created that, at what point when you said I'm off?
Well, I reached burnout. So I had a really good relationship with my boss. And do you know what, actually, as leaders, we always said that if we develop someone out of the organisation, we've done a good job. So he was never sad in that sense.
That's really
see me
cool.
go. Yeah.
I like that.
And so, yeah, he was happy for that to happen, but I reached burnout. So I actually got signed off work for about 6 weeks, just before I had my ADHD diagnosis, about 6 months after I'd split with my partner, and I'd been doing all of this work, and we'd started to go back a little bit after COVID. So it was a lot, even me just talking about it, it's a lot, isn't it? You can feel the energy, it was a lot. And so he just came to my house one day and just said to me, he knew, because I'd never been shy about things, that I was having my side hustle, teaching mindfulness to mums, I was running my 8-week courses, I was volunteering and stuff. And he just said to me, sat on my sofa and said to me, do you want to be here anymore? And I said, well, I think the answer's no. And so I decided to leave and go for it.
Yeah, it takes a lot of guts to do that, but at the same time, the drive, the passion that's just like literally flowing from you now, it was clearly destined to become what you are now. So how did you go from being employed but passionate about mindfulness and well-being to actually making a business out of it?
Yeah, so I still think I'm not a very good business person, but I don't mind. I feel like, and I've got friends in business, really good best pals in business, and often some coaches will say to them, right, okay, you need to get some consistent money, and you need to do this, that, and the other, and they go from that place. I think that when you go from a place of drive, whether that is passion, desire, whatever the drive is, you're going from a different place of like, I need to do this to I want to do this.
Yeah.
So I'd been growing my Instagram since 2017 because there was something, this little fire in me, and I needed a little outlet. So I was an accountant. I never knew what that would be, but I just had this knowledge and this stuff that I wanted to share with people. So I've been growing my Instagram for years, really, and before I did this. And then I jumped on LinkedIn, and that is what made it for me, really. I already had quite a good network. I'd invested in myself before I left the accountancy practice. I'd had coaches, I'd been in a mastermind. I was trying to learn.
Sure.
I knew there was something.
Yeah.
So I was trying to learn. And so I feel like social media gets a bad rap sometimes, but that really helped me.
Yeah, but you used it in the right way, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we're both parents, you know, that's something I was going to bring up with you from another point of view, social media. But if you're using it for business, if you're using it to grow your reach and you're getting your message out, clearly you've done that.
Yeah.
Let me touch on that with social media and the education side of things, because I know that's a big part of, you know.
Haven't even mentioned that yet, have we?
I know, but I know about it, and I'm passionate about it because 12 and 13-year-old daughters growing up with a potentially archaic and broken education system where mindfulness and wellness is just not covered. You know, some schools might say different, but just as an actual overarching.
Well, it's not on the curriculum.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What can you do? What can anyone else do? Who can lobby the government, if you like, to get this into schools early? Because there's so much data that shows that kids have learnt so much stuff by the age of 7 years old.
Yeah.
They're not even being taught it unless it comes from the parents.
Yeah. So just as a bit of background, I have been going into schools, which I never thought I would do. I've got a bit of a potty mouth sometimes, and you know, I never knew I'd be going into schools, but I got asked to do it in a quite deprived area near where I live, and I thought, oh, go on then. I had some brightly coloured trousers and things like that, and you know, they're 10 and 11-year-olds, and I thought, yeah, I'll do it as a bit of a favour. You know, I can teach mindfulness anywhere. I love it, and I have my kids' journals, so I wrote the journals. That was one of the first things I did, actually. We're talking about business. That was the first thing that I did before I left the fire service. I wrote the kids' journals again from a conversation with a friend, created the kids' journals, and just had that as something that I could take when I was doing my side hustle and I was going networking. I had something to take, and it was a good way. It was a good outlet for me where I didn't have a business, but I could still write a book. So that's one of the first things I did was a journal. So I have these beautiful journals, and so I said, yeah, I'll come in. We'll gift them some journals because that'll be really exciting, and I'll do a session. And the feedback from the session was so amazing. And one of the they have Thrive practitioners in some schools, not all schools, and she messaged me afterwards and said about one of the girls who is 11 years old, self-harming, and she thought that it had fallen on deaf ears. She was struggling, but then she spotted her across the playground when no one was looking. She didn't know anyone was there, doing one of the exercises that I taught. And in that moment, I went, oh, okay.
That was your why.
Yeah. And having, like you say, having kids yourself, and me knowing that he's going to be going next week, by the way, into the school system, again, it hits differently, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And so when she told me that, and I had that realization, I just went, okay, I'm going to more. So I went out to more, and it's just landed beautifully. And going, taking the journals and watching children not question why they're doing something. It's amazing. They just give it a go. And so I don't know the answer to how do we get this in schools, but I've started researching it. If you look at the tabs on my laptop, there's pages of like government documents and
well done you. It's needed, right?
I'm starting to look. It's not easy, but it's got to be doable because they've recently had, like, the sex education stuff has changed, hasn't it? So different ages, it's getting into, so it can change, the curriculum can change, and this is needed. And especially if we're seeing now the levels of anxiety and depression in children as young as 11, and I've just started studying my certificate in children's and young people's mental health, and it's really interesting. So I've been going into the schools, and I've just realised that this is so needed. The problem is getting into schools, the funding barrier, and people getting on board with it, because we need to learn geography and history and maths and English and everything else. So it's amazing. There's a lot of people out there that want it and want to do it, but their hands are tied.
Interesting. If you can break through that, and anyone watching has any ideas, I mean, it just feels so broken at the moment, and on the back of COVID as well. The amount of marital breakups and kids that have just been left to go on their phones, and then they're being educated by social media and bringing it back to mental health. TikTok is the #1 search engine for mental health, which is crazy. We're filming in the Jack studio, JAQ, Just Ask a Question, the social media mental health platform, which you are a big part of, a superstar within. What are your thoughts on Jack?
It's amazing. The first time I ever saw it, and I had a chat with Daniel, I said to him, the reason this is so special, and I guess it fits with like my heart-led work and the way that I do things, is that it's not clinical. It's very real. It is personable. And that was one of the big things when I started working in that sort of mental health space. Everything is quite, and I don't mean clinical as in, you know, a sense of going into a clinic. I mean clinical as in the dry conversations, the very serious conversations, you know, giving very straight answers.
Yeah.
Jack is real.
Yeah.
That is
totally
the profound
authentic
thing about it.
Like Danny himself.
Absolutely,
right?
absolutely. And if I think about part of what I recorded was around the postnatal anxiety. What if my partner at the time had been able to go somewhere and ask someone like me, how do I support someone with postnatal anxiety? Because people still don't talk about it. I didn't know my best friend struggled because people still aren't talking about certain things. If you've got somewhere where you can go and ask a question as someone who's supporting someone else, it's not even just for the people that need it. Honestly, it's one of the best things that I've ever been a part of. I'm so proud to be part of it. It's amazing.
And Jack's all the better for having you. And actually, you just said something really important there. Mental health and these platforms, and Jack in particular, isn't just for the people that are actually suffering. You know, my wife going through the menopause, I've learned loads through talking to, sort of interacting with Jack and actually getting information that is only going to help me understand what she's going through and so on. So,
and one of the things as well, I think that I've learned, you know, over these past few years of doing this work in mental health and the stuff around corporate strategies and speaking at events and things like that, is that we often focus, when we say mental health, we focus on a trauma or a diagnosis. Now that's really important, but I talk about this thing that I call mental health in-betweeners, because if we are always talking about mental health as a diagnosis or we're always talking about a trauma, lots of people aren't actually at that point, but they're still struggling. And we all of us find life really hard in terms of our mental health and wellbeing sometimes. That mental health in-betweener, those in-betweener bits, I feel aren't talked about so much. And people aren't going to resonate with that trauma or that diagnosis, but they're still going to need help. So where are those in-between conversations? And Jack has all of them.
And actually, that's when I would imagine most people can be helped the most, rather than, to use another word, get to crisis.
Proactive,
Because then they're in trouble, right?
When you're creating a strategy for you personally or for an organisation, what would be better investment, to have a helpline when you're in crisis or to invest in something before you get there? It's obvious. And when you create a strategy, you have to have all of those pillars. You have to have something there, of course, if someone needs help, but you need the proactive, preventative stuff as well. And I think that's the bit that people are missing often.
So who is your client now? Because everything you just said makes so much sense, and everyone now seems to recognise that a company, an organisation, is better if all the people are happy and, you know, functioning well and so on, which is very much where you would come in. But who's the sort of perfect client for you?
So, and can I just say a really quick something, that a lot of people talk about this, having happy employees. I did a post about it the other day, because it's not about people being happy. No one's happy all the time. I'm not happy all the time. Even as a mindfulness teacher, I still, like, you know, lose my and everything else. It's not about being happy, it's about being supported. So my clients, I guess, are those people that look after HR, well-being in organisations where they know that they need to have some things in place. What are we going to put in place? Or you've got a strategy and you want to focus on that proactive, preventative bit, because I genuinely believe that mindfulness should be a part of every mental health and wellbeing strategy. People don't understand what mindfulness is. That's half of my challenge. But if you can give people something, a practice that they can use in their own personal life and you can use in work, it's literally a win-win. And so have a strategy, make sure that's in place. What's going to go into that strategy? There's lots of things. Your people, policies and procedures should be mentioned in that strategy. The things around maternal leave, parental leave, you know, sick leave, everything touches on that mental health and well-being. But then what are the proactive things you're going to do? And for me, something like mindfulness is one of those things.
So tell me your definition of mindfulness.
Sure. So mindfulness simply means awareness. People often think that mindfulness is just meditation. It isn't. Mindfulness just means awareness, and it's a brain training. It's training you to be consciously aware, choosing where you're putting your awareness. And I'll give you a really good example of an everyday situation that I thought about this morning. When I was on the aeroplane for my first solo trip recently, usually, we talk about the kids, you put your headphones in, you're doing your own thing. When I was at the train station today, people have got their heads in their phones. What I have is a real acute awareness of when I'm doing that sort of thing. And
Sure.
so when I got on the plane, I took my headphones out, I didn't put my head in my book, and I had a look around. That's mindfulness, being present in the moment. Led to a business lead, by the way, so it actually worked out really, really well. Being mindful led to some business.
Awesome.
So it's not just meditation, it's not just breathing, it's not just about being all zen and woo-woo. It is how you train your brain to choose where it wants to put its awareness and not be so distracted.
You've articulated that so well. And I'm just thinking now, so there are so many different ways you can do that. If you imagine somebody, a lot of men struggle with mindfulness. I'm weak to admit I need some help, or that's for other people. Where would you suggest someone starts with going into that kind of and embracing it?
So you already practice mindfulness. There is no doubt. You look very fit and healthy. I'm sure you go to the gym.
I do, and I think just touching on some things you said as well. I try and stay present, and I will go out and I will walk out to the beach, or I live in the New Forest. I'll just get out, and it just removes emails. It removes
you
the
remove
stress
the
of
distraction. Yeah.
And I've always been like that, even as a youngster. It was.
And you can feel the difference, right,
Definitely.
when you do that.
I come back different, and that might be a run as well, or a bike ride. So without probably realising how much of that was really important to me as a youngster, I then went away from that a bit. You get distracted as you're growing up as a teenager and so on. And I still was doing some sport, but I was doing it because I kind of had to. And actually, interestingly enough, I fell out of love with it, and then went back to the things that just worked for me, which is staying fit on my terms and being around nature.
Yeah. So my point is that people, and you're right, firefighters, it is a male-dominated environment, and people think, oh, what is this mindfulness like? Here we go again. Like they joke with me, what's this all about? But my point here is that you already do it. It's just that you can consciously choose to put more time and effort into doing it, which makes it then easier, and then you can learn about what it actually means. So you already do it. You already go to the gym, and when you're in the gym, you're present with what you're doing.
Yes.
You are practicing mindfulness. Think about when you go out for one of your favorite meals, and you are with somebody that you really love being with, or maybe you're on your own. You have one of your favorite meals. You are so present with that meal. You're really taking it all in because you love it. That is mindfulness. You already do it. And I think that's the biggest thing I want people to take away, is that it's not this brand new thing. It's not woo-woo. It's not about spilling your guts or anything like that. It's about awareness. You already do it, but you can do it a little bit better. And there's never an end goal. There's never a tick. This is brilliant. Some days it's going to be easier than others. Some days for me it's easier than others. Some days I forget my practice, but I'm a human being.
Yes. You
but
forgive
if you
yourself.
Have this toolkit, once you've got it, you've got it.
I'd love to know what works for you, because there are so many different. You sort of said I go to the gym, and I do. I try and do something every morning to keep fit, and it gets my brain going. But there's from the gym to cycling to yoga, Pilates to breathing exercises. So from a mental and a physical point of view, especially in your capacity as a mum and mindfulness as your career, what works for you?
So there's, I guess, the top three things in terms of my mindfulness practice. Number one, brushing my teeth mindfully. Sounds ridiculous, but it's one of the, people love it when you start to talk about it and they haven't done it before, and you just say, choose one thing that you do every day on autopilot and use as many of your senses as possible to be fully present with it. And brushing your teeth is a really good one, because you've probably got a mirror, so you can use sight, you can smell it, you can taste it, you can touch it, you can hear it. It's a really good one. So you can go, everybody can go, and this can be their homework to brush their teeth more mindfully. That's a really good one. You do it every day.
Might brush them for longer as well.
So it's all positive. The other one is eating for me, definitely. I love food, so that's always a good one, especially because a lot of other times we are on the go. So consciously choosing to actually sit down and eat your meal rather than standing up, shoving it. I know.
Bad at that.
So actually deciding to do that. And then the last thing for me is obviously meditation, but there's lots of different types. I have a very busy brain. And meditation to music actually is one of my favourites at the minute. And I think people often think that, you know, it has to be silence and you've got to empty your mind, which is absolute crap, by the way. But meditation to music is a nice place to start, especially if you can find a song that's got, you know, repetitive words, a repetitive tune, where you can just focus on like your breathing, get into that zone and just to almost sing along with it. And you can do it out loud or in your head. I did it on the tube the other day.
Yeah.
You just have to find what works for you. There's so many different meditations out there. Don't listen to someone with an annoying voice either. Turn it off and find another one, because that's the worst thing ever.
Great advice. I love it. What's behind the name of Mental Health Rebellion? I'm interested to know that.
So I think when I started that studying, when I started to have more conversations, when I opened up my network to, you know, different people and just this concept and started working in this area, everything was a bit samey. Everything was a bit turquoise, and like I said, that clinical conversations were very similar, and I've always felt a bit different. Growing up, I've always felt different, and I thought, why not embrace being different instead of trying to fit into a box? And the rebellion just felt right. It just felt like this is a mental health rebellion, because I want to do things a bit differently, and we don't all have to do things the same way, and you can find your own way. Be a rebel, be your own rebel. And that is really where it came from. And it makes me feel good when I say it, and I hope that it makes other people feel good as well.
I think that's the thing, because mental health can be, from a stigma point of view, it can be, I don't want to say boring, but it is that element of like, oh, like you said
or scary.
Yes. And as you say, people haven't, over the years, just haven't pushed the boundaries, or from what I can see, because you're so immersed in it. But I just felt like it was sort of myths, and wasn't a lot of education around it. Whereas actually, you make it fun, you make it education, you make it articulate, from kids in the classroom to me talking to you now, right? Let alone businesses that actually can benefit from your input.
Sorry, John, why can't I turn up like I do in the schools with a full Disney tracksuit with a colourful mindfulness journal to talk about mental health? And that is what I do, by the way. I have a full Disney jacket.
I mean, how many talks did I have at my school?
I got emails saying the kids are waiting for you to come back. Honestly, but that's the thing for me. Why can't I turn up in, you know, bright pink outfit or a Disney tracksuit or whatever it is, and talk about some really serious things, but whilst being human? And that's the rebellion for me.
Talk to me about Lego.
Okay, so firstly, I have to say I just love Lego. I've talked about my postnatal anxiety, and I really struggled to bond with my little boy. I did a lot of things with him, like writing and reading. That's why he's a bit of a genius now. But I really struggled to play with him. And I think that was partly the anxiety, partly my ADHD. And I'm very honest about that. I feel like some people would not like to admit that, but I can admit that. Anyway, and then we found Lego, and we absolutely bonded over it, and it is still our favourite thing to do together. And then when I started playing, I realised how mindful it is. And so all this just started sort of percolating in my mind. I'm working with children, I'm watching my little boy with it, I'm seeing what it feels like for me. And I was thinking about the barriers that are in place in terms of getting into schools. And I thought, what I need is a partnership to be able to fund this, to get into schools, have that societal impact. And I thought to myself, wouldn't Lego be the best partner ever? You could have little Lego Amy Polly that people, you know, because I gift the journals, they could get the gift of the Lego Amy Polly. You could have it on a backpack, you could have it on a pencil case as a reminder. Because when I go in and I do the sessions with them, we have a go with the journal, we do some mindfulness practices, and then the teachers get a guide. So they get a little handout. So every day now they have a journaling practice, and every week they have a mindfulness practice. And so something like Lego, like kids love, like you're already getting in with them. It's finding that in point, isn't it? It's finding that door.
It's
Lego
so relatable.
is a door.
And actually, adults, parents love. I mean, look at you, right? You love Lego. I've not grown out of Lego. My kids have moved on from it now, but when they were playing it, I was playing it with them, and they'll come back to it at some point. So you've got something there.
It just felt like a partnership made it. I just really feel like that would be able to break down the barriers. It would give just an additional layer to the children. Totally. And who doesn't want to support mindfulness and mental health in schools? I just feel like it's a bit of a no-brainer, and I feel like that partnership would be amazing.
Has to happen.
So
remember this now, because it manifest it. It's got to happen.
And it just, for me, I'm just gonna keep at it. And I think that they should have mindfulness guides in some of their Lego sets as well, because
100%.
it is mindful. You're not getting a guide, so there could be a few little Amy Polly mindfulness guides in
I
some of
think
this.
you've got to make it happen.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Awesome. I love it. You are so interesting to talk to. I've learned masses. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
That went so quickly.
It did. I know. Cheers, Amy.
Thank you.